Before we begin, let me tell you what you're about to hear. If you've ever wondered what you would do if you discovered your partner's deepest betrayal, this story is for you. I spent years believing in my marriage, ignoring the late-night texts, the sudden business trips, the way my husband's eyes started to drift away from me. I tried to hold our family together, to believe in the promises we made. But on the night of our 15th anniversary, surrounded by everyone we loved, I made a choice. I exposed the truth, right there in front of them all. This isn't just a story about infidelity. It's about finding your voice when you feel invisible, about the pain of letting go, and the unexpected strength that comes when you finally put yourself first. So settle in, because what happened at that party changed everything I thought I knew about love, loyalty, and starting over. The night I exposed my cheating husband at our anniversary party, I learned that sometimes the only way to save yourself is to set the truth free in front of everyone. I still remember the way the house glowed that evening, every window lit up, laughter and music spilling out into the warm summer air. It was our 15th wedding anniversary, and I'd spent weeks planning the party, ordering flowers, choosing the menu, making sure every detail was perfect. I wanted it to be a night to remember, a celebration of everything we'd built together. Our friends and family filled the living room, glasses raised, voices mingling in a happy hum. My husband, David, was the center of it all, charming, attentive, moving from group to group with that easy smile that had first drawn me in all those years ago. He looked handsome in his navy suit, his hair just starting to gray at the temples, his eyes bright with excitement. I watched him from across the room, my heart a strange mix of pride and sadness. I'd loved David for half my life. We built a home, raised 2 children, weathered storms I never thought we'd survive. But lately, something had changed. He was distant, distracted, always on his phone or working late. He stopped reaching for my hand at night, stopped laughing at my jokes, stopped looking at me the way he used to. I told myself it was just a rough patch, that every marriage had its ups and downs. I tried to be patient, to give him space, to remind myself of all the reasons I'd fallen in love with him. But deep down, I felt the chill of something I couldn't name. That's when I started noticing the little things, the late-night texts, the sudden business trips, the way he'd come home smelling of perfume that wasn't mine. I tried to ignore it, tried to believe his excuses, but the doubt grew louder with every passing day. A week before the party, I found the first real clue. David had left his phone on the kitchen counter while he showered, and a message popped up on the screen. "Can't wait to see you tonight. Miss you already." The sender's name was just an initial, K. My heart pounded as I scrolled through the messages, each one more intimate than the last. I felt sick, the truth settling over me like a heavy blanket. I confronted David that night, my voice shaking. He denied everything, said it was just a friend from work, that I was overreacting. He was angry, defensive, turned the blame on me, said I was too controlling, too suspicious, too much. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to pretend everything was fine, to go back to the way things were. But I couldn't, not anymore. I spent the next few days in a fog, moving through the motions of planning the party, smiling for the kids, pretending for the world. But inside, I was unraveling. I knew I had to do something. I couldn't let him keep lying, couldn't let him keep making a fool of me. That's when I made my decision. If David wanted to play games, I would show him what it felt like to lose. The night of the party, I dressed carefully. A blue dress David had always loved, my hair swept up, a string of pearls at my throat. I looked in the mirror and saw a woman I barely recognized, strong, determined, ready to fight for herself. As the guests arrived, I moved through the crowd, greeting old friends, hugging family, accepting congratulations and compliments. I watched David, watched the way he laughed, the way he touched my back just a little too lightly, the way he glanced at his phone when he thought no one was looking. I waited until dessert, until the room was full and the music was soft and everyone was watching. I waited until David stood to make his toast, his glass raised, his voice warm and smooth. "To my beautiful wife," he said, smiling at me across the room. 15 years, and I love you more every day." The guests cheered, glasses clinking, laughter ringing out. I stood, my hands steady, my heart pounding. Thank you, David, and thank you, everyone, for being here tonight. I have a little surprise of my own. The room quieted, all eyes on me. I took a deep breath, ready to set the truth free. Don't go anywhere, because what happened next would unravel every lie, every promise, and every hope I'd ever had for our marriage. The room was so quiet you could hear the clink of ice in someone's glass. I looked around at the faces, my parents, our children, David's colleagues, friends from every chapter of our lives. I saw curiosity, confusion, a few nervous smiles. I saw David's face, frozen in that perfect toast, his eyes searching mine for a clue. I smiled, steadying my voice. 15 years is a long time. We've had our share of ups and downs, but I always believed in honesty, in trust, in the kind of love that can survive anything. David's smile faltered. He set his glass down, his hand trembling just a little. I continued, so tonight, I want to share something with all of you, something I learned about love and about truth. I reached into my purse and pulled out a small stack of papers. My hands were steady, but my heart was racing. I could feel the weight of every eye in the room. These, I said, holding up the papers, are messages between my husband and someone he calls K, messages that started as work talk, but turned into something else. Something I didn't know about until last week. A gasp rippled through the room. My mother covered her mouth. My best friend, Carla, reached for my hand under the table. David's face went pale, his jaw clenched. I looked at him, my voice soft but clear. David, do you want to explain, or should I read them out loud? He shook his head, his voice barely above a whisper. Please, Anna, not here, not like this. I felt a strange calm settle over me. Why not? You weren't worried about here or like this when you were sneaking around behind my back. Someone in the back of the room muttered, "Oh my God." The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. David tried to stand, but I held up a hand. Sit down, David. You owe me and everyone here the truth. He sat. His shoulders slumped, his eyes fixed on the floor. I turned to the guests, my voice trembling just a little. I'm sorry to do this in front of all of you, but I spent too many years pretending, too many years making excuses for things I knew in my heart weren't right. I deserve better. My children deserve better, and I won't let another year go by without speaking the truth. I set the papers on the table, my hands finally starting to shake. The room was silent, the only sound the soft hum of the air conditioner. David finally looked up, his eyes red. Anna, I'm sorry. I never meant for it to go this far. I shook my head, tears stinging my eyes. You never meant for me to find out, you mean? He nodded, defeated. After a long, heavy silence, my father stood. He walked over to me, wrapped me in a hug, and whispered, You're brave, sweetheart. I'm proud of you. Carla squeezed my hand, her eyes shining with tears. You did the right thing. I looked around the room, at the people who loved me, at the people who'd watched our marriage from the outside and never guessed what was happening behind closed doors. I felt a strange sense of relief, as if a weight I'd carried for years had finally been lifted. The party ended quickly after that. Guests left in small groups, some stopping to hug me, some shaking their heads in disbelief. My children, old enough to understand, but still young enough to be hurt, sat with me in the living room, their faces pale and confused. David tried to talk to me, but I shook my head. Not tonight, David, not anymore. He left, the door closing softly behind him. That night, I sat on the porch, wrapped in a blanket, staring at the stars. I thought about the years I'd spent loving David, about the dreams we'd shared, about the life we'd built together. I thought about the lies, the betrayal, the pain. But I also thought about the strength it took to stand up for myself, to speak the truth, to let go of something that was already gone. I knew the hardest part was still ahead, but for the first time in a long time, I felt free. Don't go anywhere, because the fallout from that night would reach further than I ever imagined, and the path to healing would be longer and harder than I ever expected. The morning after the party, the house was eerily quiet. The flowers from the night before were already starting to wilt, their petals drooping in the vases. I wandered from room to room, picking up empty glasses, folding napkins, collecting the remnants of a celebration that had turned into a reckoning. My phone buzzed with messages, some from friends offering support, others from people who'd been at the party and didn't know what to say. My mother called, her voice trembling. "Anna, are you all right? Do you want me to come over?" I told her I was fine, that I just needed some time. But the truth was, I felt hollow, as if the ground beneath my feet had shifted and I was still waiting to land. David didn't come home that night. He sent a text, just a few words, no apology, no explanation. "I'm staying at a hotel. I'll call tomorrow." I stared at the message, feeling a strange mix of anger and relief. I didn't want to see him. I didn't want to hear his excuses. I just wanted to breathe. The kids were quiet at breakfast, pushing their food around their plates. My son, Ben, finally looked up, his eyes red. "Is Dad coming back?" he asked, his voice small. I shook my head, fighting back tears. "I don't know, sweetheart, but whatever happens, we're going to be okay. I promise." My daughter, Lily, reached for my hand. "I'm proud of you, Mom. You didn't let him get away with it." I squeezed her hand, grateful for her strength. Word spread quickly, as it always does in small towns. By noon, I'd received a dozen calls from people who hadn't even been at the party. Some offered sympathy, others wanted details, a few just wanted to gossip. I ignored most of them, focusing on my children, on the small tasks that kept me grounded. Carla came over with coffee and pastries, her arms full of comfort. We sat on the porch, watching the world go by, talking about everything and nothing. "You did the right thing, Anna," she said, her voice firm. "You stood up for yourself. That takes guts." I nodded, but the doubt lingered. Did I, or did I just make a spectacle? She shook her head. "You told the truth. That's never wrong." David called that afternoon. I let it go to voicemail, not ready to hear his voice. He left a message, his tone weary. "Anna, I'm sorry. I know I hurt you. I know I messed up. I don't know what to say. I'll come by tomorrow to talk." I deleted the message, not trusting myself to listen to it again. That night I sat with Ben and Lily, watching an old movie, the three of us curled up on the couch. For a little while it felt almost normal, just the three of us, safe and together. But when the credits rolled and the lights went out, the silence returned, heavy and unyielding. I lay awake for hours, staring at the ceiling, replaying the events of the night before. I wondered if I'd done the right thing, if I'd made things worse, if I'd ever be able to trust again. But deep down, I knew the truth. I'd chosen myself. I'd chosen my children. I'd chosen honesty over comfort, truth over lies. And that, I realized, was the first step toward healing. Don't go anywhere, because the journey to healing and new beginnings is just beginning, and it's for anyone who's ever had to rebuild after the truth came out. The days that followed were a blur of awkward conversations and quiet strength. David came by the house, his face drawn, his eyes rimmed with regret. He tried to talk to the kids to explain, but they weren't ready. Ben stayed in his room, headphones on, refusing to come out. Lily sat at the kitchen table, arms crossed, her face set in a mask of anger. David and I sat in the living room, the silence between us thick and heavy. He started to speak, but I held up a hand. "Don't," I said quietly. "I don't want to hear any more lies." He nodded, his shoulders slumping. "I'm sorry, Anna, I really am. I never meant for any of this to happen." I looked at him, searching for the man I'd loved, the man I'd built a life with. "You made choices, David. You chose her. You chose to lie. You chose to risk everything we had." He wiped his eyes, his voice breaking. "I know, I wish I could take it back." I shook my head, feeling a strange sense of peace. "You can't. All you can do now is be honest, with me, with the kids, with yourself." He nodded, standing to leave. "I'll give you space, but I want to be here for Ben and Lily. I want to try to make things right." I watched him go, the door closing softly behind him. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. Word spread quickly, as it always does. At the grocery store, people looked at me with a mix of pity and admiration. Some offered quiet words of support. Others just stared, their curiosity barely hidden. At church, the pastor pulled me aside, his voice gentle. "You did a brave thing, Anna. The truth is never easy, but it's always right." I thanked him, feeling the weight of his words settle in my heart. Carla was my rock. She came by every day, bringing food, helping with chores, sitting with me in the quiet moments when the grief threatened to swallow me whole. "You're not alone," she reminded me. "You have people who love you, you have your children, you have yourself." The kids struggled, each in their own way. Ben lashed out at school, picking fights, refusing to do his homework. Lily withdrew, spending hours in her room, her once bright laughter gone. I tried to be patient, to give them space, to remind them that it was okay to be angry, to be sad, to be confused. One night, I found Ben sitting on the porch, his face streaked with tears. "Why did Dad do it?" he asked, his voice small. I sat beside him, pulling him close. "I don't know, sweetheart. Sometimes people make mistakes. Sometimes they forget what's important." He nodded, wiping his eyes. "I hate him." I hugged him tighter. "It's okay to be angry, but don't let it turn your heart hard. We're going to get through this, together." Lily came to me a few days later, her eyes red. "Are you going to be okay, Mom?" she whispered. I smiled, brushing her hair from her face. "I am, honey. We all are. It's going to take time, but we'll be okay." She hugged me, holding on tight. "I love you." "I love you, too." The weeks passed, and slowly we began to heal. The house felt different, quieter, but also lighter. I started to find joy in small things again: a cup of coffee on the porch, a walk in the park, a good book at bedtime. The kids laughed more, fought less, started to believe that life could be good again. David called often, checking in on the kids, asking if he could take them for dinner, for a movie, for a weekend away. I let him, knowing that they needed their father, even if I didn't. I started seeing a counselor, working through the pain, the anger, the grief. I learned to forgive, not for David, but for myself. I learned that healing wasn't about forgetting, but about letting go. Don't go anywhere. The journey to true healing and new beginnings is just beginning, and it's for anyone who's ever had to find themselves again after betrayal. Autumn arrived, and with it, a sense of quiet renewal. The air turned crisp, the leaves blazed gold and red, and I found myself drawn outside, walking the old trails behind our house, letting the wind carry away the last of summer's sorrow. I didn't talk much at first, just walked, letting the silence settle, letting my thoughts drift. Slowly, I began to open up. I talked to Carla about my dreams, about the future, about the kind of love I wanted, about the kind of woman I was becoming. She listened, her heart wide open, her advice gentle and wise. I was still hurting, but I was healing too, stronger, wiser, more determined than ever. I started to heal in other ways too. I joined a book club, started baking again, invited friends over for coffee and long, meandering conversations. I let myself laugh, let myself hope, let myself believe that life could be good again. I forgave myself for not seeing the truth, for trusting too easily, for loving too much. One evening, as I sat on the porch watching the sunset, Ben came outside, his face softer than it had been in weeks. "Can I sit with you?" he asked. I nodded, patting the seat beside me. He sat, silent for a long time, then finally spoke. "I miss Dad, but I'm glad you told the truth, Mom. I'm glad you didn't let him get away with it." I hugged him, feeling the steady beat of his heart against mine. "Me too, sweetheart, me too." Lily found her own way to heal. She joined the school play, made new friends, started drawing again. Her laughter came easier, her hugs tighter. We created new rituals, movie nights with popcorn, Saturday morning pancakes, long walks in the park with our dog, Daisy. I watched her grow braver, kinder, more resilient, and I knew I was doing something right. David and I found a new rhythm. We weren't friends, not yet, but we were partners in parenting. He showed up for Ben and Lily, kept his promises, learned to listen instead of just talk. Sometimes we'd sit together at their soccer games, sharing stories about their childhood, laughing at their stubbornness, marveling at how much they'd grown. There were still hard days, days when the past felt too close, when old wounds ached, but we kept moving forward, one step at a time. I started writing again, Journals, letters, stories for Ben and Lily. I wrote about forgiveness, about starting over, about the way love can survive even the deepest wounds. I wrote about the lessons I'd learned, about the hope I still carried in my heart. I reconnected with old friends, joined a yoga class, started volunteering at the library on weekends. I let myself dream again, of travel, of new love, of a life that was bigger and brighter than the one I'd left behind. One evening, as Ben, Lily, and I sat on the porch watching the stars, Lily leaned her head on my shoulder. "Are you happy, Mom?" she asked, her voice soft. I smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "I am, honey, I really am." She grinned, her eyes shining. "Me too." I hugged them both close, feeling the steady beat of their hearts against mine. I knew there would still be hard days, still be moments of doubt and regret. But I also knew that we were strong, that we were brave, that we were enough, just the three of us together. I wasn't the same woman I'd been before I exposed David at our anniversary party. I was stronger, wiser, more compassionate with myself and with the people I loved. I knew that life would never be perfect, that there would always be pain and loss and disappointment. But I also knew that I could survive, that I could rebuild, that I could find joy in the small, everyday moments. I looked around at the life I'd created. The house filled with light, the garden blooming, the laughter of friends and family, and felt a quiet sense of peace. I was still here, I was still standing, and I was ready for whatever came next. Don't go anywhere. The final reflection is next, and it's for anyone who's ever had to find themselves again after losing everything. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is speak the truth, even when your voice shakes, even when it means letting go of the life you thought you had. The night I exposed my cheating husband at our anniversary party, I thought I was losing everything. But what I found was something I'd forgotten I had: my own strength, my own dignity, and the love of the people who truly mattered. If you've ever had to choose between keeping the peace and standing up for yourself, or if you've ever been forced to start over after betrayal, I hope you know you're not alone. Healing isn't quick, and it isn't easy. But with time, honesty, and a little bit of grace, it is possible. Sometimes the real strength is in letting go, not just of the people who hurt you, but of the guilt and shame you never deserved to carry. Would you have exposed the truth, or kept the secret for the sake of your family? Have you ever had to rebuild your life in front of everyone? Tell me in the comments. I'd love to hear your story. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe and share it with someone who might need a little hope tonight. Thank you for listening and for being part of this family. Until next time, take care of yourself, and remember, even after the deepest betrayal, you can still choose to begin again.